Welcome back to America Decides. The Atlantic's editor-in-chief, we've talked about his name before, Jeff Goldberg, is sharing why he chose not to disclose each and every detail of that Signal group chat of principals within the Trump national security team. Here's what he told CBS News yesterday.
And I believe there's a very important public right to know how decisions are made about whether to go to war or not. I don't think that minute technical details about the timing of attacks or the weapons used, I don't think that's for me to discuss openly. Didn't seem responsible.
Samantha Vinograd and Joshua Skule join me now. Samantha, as you well know, a CBS News national security contributor. Josh, formerly served as the FBI's executive assistant director for intelligence. Josh, we'll get to you in a second, but I want to talk to Sam for a second because we previewed this in the open of the show because it's really important. Who are the Houthis? What are they doing? What is the difference in the Trump administration's new efforts to attack them militarily from what the Biden administration did? Let's just start with those three.
Sure. The Houthis have actually been around for a long time, since the 1990s. This is a Shia Islamist group, also known as Ansar Allah, who has for years tried to capture more territory in Yemen and to exert control. They've been locked in a brutal civil war with the Yemeni government and now control a sizable amount of territory. The Houthis are staunchly anti-Israel, anti-the U.S., and more. They are funded and supplied by the regime in Tehran and receive a lot of operational direction and support from them. In recent months, particularly post the Hamas terrorist attack against Israel, they have stepped up their efforts against shipping in the Red Sea and surrounding waters. And you asked about the Trump administration. Two key differences, Major. The Trump administration has more recently stepped up military strikes against the Houthis and designated the Houthis as a foreign terrorist organization as well.
So they have proven themselves resilient against lots of different armed combatants. The Saudis were involved in that civil war for a while. And during that civil war, there were attacks on Saudi oil facilities, which is something that is a broader concern. If this attempt by the Trump administration to knock them out doesn't succeed or leads the Houthis to take military action against the Saudis, this thing could spread.
It could, and we have already seen the Houthis launch longer-range missiles into Israel and elsewhere, so this could spread. But I do think we have to wait and see how these military strikes play out. They do look to be sustained, and we'll have to see if the Houthis step back from these attacks in the Red Sea and elsewhere.
Josh, this is your lane of information that is classified, protocols, methods, how you're supposed to handle it. What are your most important takeaways from what you've absorbed so far about this Signal chat group story?
Well, I think, obviously that's been blowing up all day. And unfortunately, what we saw was, at the very least, sloppy tradecraft, for lack of a better term. Certainly not appropriate to be communicating in that.
For people who should know better.
Exactly. Some are newer to the administration and probably getting used to it, especially when you have technology out there that you can use in a classified setting that will provide the ease to communicate. But I think also what happened today, aside from that, is we didn't learn what the administration's priorities are to combat the threats affecting the United States. This was so focused on Signal, and we've seen reporting of where they're going after the gangs, but they're also a large number of threats impacting the United States, China, Russia, Iran, to what we were talking about, the terrorist organizations.
Which would have been most of the questions from senators
Correct.
Today had this Signal story not been part of it. Do you believe any laws might have been broken here?
I think you have the top intelligence officials who will make that determination, whether or not there's prosecution. Certainly, we have seen talk-arounds, if you want to call that, on unsecure channels previously with no prosecution. It's really whether there's an intent. I think there's a lot of lessons learned here. I think the Department of Justice will have to take a hard look at this, and this could be the first time that there's a conflict within this administration.
And when the president's... Go ahead,
I was just going to say, and today in the Intel hearing, the FBI director indicated the DOJ has not yet opened up an investigation into any potential breaches of law, whether that be a violation of the Espionage Act, a violation of the Presidential Records Act. So waiting really to see if DOJ takes that action.
Sam, you were trained on this sort of stuff, weren't you?
I was, and typically in my experience, Major, I have never seen a military operational plan, timing of strikes, weapons, troop movements, that isn't classified at some level. Now, signal is used by government officials. There's special dispensation that's given, and there's protocols to follow to capture images. But the bottom line is anything that is not public, that you don't want the public to know or foreign governments to know, you don't put on an unclassified system.
And Josh, James Laporta was just on our air talking about his reporting that this bulletin from the Trump National Security Agency alerting people not to use Signal in anything other than the most benign ways ought to put this in some kind of context, legally or otherwise.
I would agree with that. There is also a bulletin from the FBI that says don't use text message at all anymore, going back months because that's been penetrated. Just a point of clarification. It's the FBI's responsibility to open an investigation. They don't have to wait for Department of Justice. Now, many directors have deferred to the Attorney General for that kind of guidance, but it's Justice's job to prosecute, not to investigate. Right. So we'll see how this conflict arises in this administration.
And the president said this afternoon, I don't think this is really an FBI matter, a kind of a signal.
I would say that that's a message.
To coin a word that's very topical the last 48 hours. Sam Vinograd, Josh Skule, thank you very much for being with me. I appreciate it.